to Pillbox Movies. I'm Hank, and today we're going to be watching the 1973 Indian film Duvidha. This is a ghost story, apparently. It's about a ghost who falls in love with a new bride and then takes over her husband's body. Ooh. The film is directed by Mani Kaul and is based off of a Rajasthani story by Vijay Data. It stars Ravi Menon and Raisa Padamse. And yeah, this is an example of new Indian cinema and is the first color feature film, I believe, by director Mani Kaul. I'm interested to check it out. So yeah, let's watch Duvidha. And before we get started, don't forget to click the like button and subscribe for more old, obscure, and art house films. Duvidha! I wonder why. Maybe it was just a technical limitation, but I wonder why they're starting with still images of these, as opposed to moving images. Duvidha, Indecision, a Rajasthani folktale. Yeah, this image in particular attracted me to seeing this movie. Just to look at all of those textures. Is this another still image? No.
संयोग की बात है कि बरगद के इस पेड़ के अंदर एक भूत का निवास था.
I can't believe they were able to zoom up close enough to get individual details in the movement of the leaves. That's some fidelity right there. I'm guessing this movie's going to have a lot of furtive glancing in it, seeing things out of the corner of your eye. The wife character in this seems like she's pretty demure. Lachi, played by Raisa Padamse. All these face coverings, these veils. Another still image. I'm gonna wonder if this kind of repeats itself, if this is a sort of trademark of Rami Kaul, or if it's just specific technical constraints of this film. Mani Kaul, of Mani Kaul.
दुल्हन के शरीर में प्रवेश करने का दुर्विचार आते ही भूत को अचानक दया भाव का अनुभव हुआ. उसके मन में ऐसी उलझन तो पहले कभी नहीं उभरी.
Ghosts feeling stuff. Also, the other movie that I watched today also featured a supernatural entity suddenly feeling human emotions. This is an interesting, a little thing. We'll see how they develop on it later, but that there's different perspectives in the voiceover, that it's not taking the point of view of just one storyteller.
दुल्हन तो इतना कहकर अविलंब बैलगाड़ी से बाहर आ गई.
अब सही बात का पता चला. पिताजी के डर के मारे अब तक हिसाब में उलझे हुए हैं.
Like another one of the movies featured on this channel, The Long Hot Summer. Yeah, there's this kind of beautiful take, like direction of the camera in this that kind of sees everything from a diagonal, almost like it's creeping, sneaking a look. Bodies are only framed in like sections. You're never seeing anybody's face outright. It's kind of the perspective of somebody who's kind of averting their eyes, but still like looking on in secret. Wow, it's lovely.
दुल्हन ने कुछ जवाब नहीं दिया. बैलगाड़ी के अंदर जैसे बंद चुपचाप बैठी पीहर की बातें सोचने लगी. माँ बाप का वियोग सहा, सहेलियों का साथ.
Yeah, just beautiful colors. And the wedding ceremony is kind of ushered by the women. Yeah, do you see what I mean about kind of like the diagonals? The kind of obtuse, the kind of opaque way this is choosing to film its subjects. like an observer in the distance. Yeah, these overheads are kind of exciting. It's like in direct contrast to the other movie that I watched today. You Won't Be Alone. You Won't Be Alone takes a very kind of low angle for its camera and kind of takes you into the character's perspective, what they're seeing, what they're feeling, and this is very kind of voyeuristic in comparison.
घर की मर्यादा का अच्छी तरह ध्यान रखना, सास ससुर की सेवा बंदगी करना।
Yeah, this actress
इंसान की
is
इज्जत तो अपने
beautiful.
हाथ में होती है। 2 दिन के लिए वासना को क्यों उभारा जाए, और फिर समय गुजरते क्या देर लगती है।
There's a nice kind of tension or contrast is created with the husband's constant flitting about and her extreme stillness, characterized, of course, by the second shot, where it was a still frame of her.
वह किसी दुश्चिंता को अपने नजदीक न भटकने दे। आँख झपकने के साथ ही 5 साल बीत जाएंगे।
5 years? What kind of husband are you? Her sorry is legit.
दिशावर की राह आगे बढ़ा, कमर में पैसे की नौली बंधी थी, सामने आकाश में व्यापार, सुख लाभ कमाई का क्या पार।
It's almost like a surveillance camera, how distantly this camera treats its subjects sometimes. It's such a different perspective on, like, the human body.
बरगद के उसी पेड़ के अंदर छुपे भूत ने सेठ के लड़के को तुरंत पहचान लिया, युवक का रूप धरकर उसका अभिवादन किया। भूत ने लड़के की बोली, चाल व उसके स्वभाव की जानकारी प्राप्त करते हुए मन ही मन सोचा कि यदि सेठ के पुत्र का हूबहू रूप धरकर वह सवेरे ही हवेली में घुस जाए तो 5 साल तक कोई पूछने वाला नहीं, दुल्हन तक उसे पहचान नहीं पाएगी।
Will she not? That seems like a big risk. I mean, I'm not familiar with Monical's work, but he seems to have a real affinity for shooting faces. Just a beautiful way of capturing human features on screen. Oh, I love those thirds. This extreme background, middle ground, and foreground. It's so weird how pace can create a sense of intimacy. Just thinking about the 2 different approaches that this and You Won't Be Alone take. You Won't Be Alone really wants to get you inside of the characters' heads and get you engaged with them and the way that they see the world. And it does this with a lot of kind of clippy editing, making it kind of a little bit faster paced than it needs to be. And you kind of like enter into the breath of these characters. And it's like a heartbeat. It's like cut, cut, cut. You feel what they're seeing, what they're seeing, what they're seeing. And this approaches intimacy in such a different way by allowing it to breathe and by taking its time, and you really feel like you're soaking in these faces and these people. And I'm not saying one is necessarily good and the other one is bad, but it is such a stark contrast to basically achieve the same sort of effect.
मैं जानती थी कि तुम बीच राह से लौट आओगे।
मालूम नहीं तुम्हारी बात सच हुई या नहीं।
Again with the still frames, but you feel like looking at these characters for long enough, actually staying in the same kind of temporal space with them, it breeds familiarity with them, and it breeds a kind of mystery as well.
कहीं तुम्हें छलने तो नहीं आया है? उसके बाद भूत ने जो सही बात थी विस्तार पूर्वक बता दी कि उस बरगद के नीचे उघड़ा हुआ रूप देखकर वह कैसे मूर्छित हुआ
And they also
तब
achieve a
होश
sense of
आया।
intimacy with the
पेशावर
audience
जाते हुए पति
through
से क्या बातचीत
voiceovers
की,
and narration.
उसका रूप धरकर कैसे हवेली आने का साहस जुटाया, महात्मा का वरदान किस प्रकार रचाया, आंधी तूफान की बात भी उसने पूरी तरह बताई।
तुम तो असली पति समझकर सहवास करती, पर मेरा मन नहीं माना।
Wow, just that little glint of his opposite eye. Really lovely shadow play in this. I love how matte the shadows are, and then just like, I don't know, drenched in oil and reflectiveness and bursts of light are the opposite sides of the face.
भूत होकर भी
And the
मैंने कोई बात
eyes.
नहीं छिपाई।
कभी तो एक बात अच्छी लगती है, कभी दूसरी।
Imagine being that down bad for your husband that you're willing to submit yourself to a ghost wearing his shapeshifted into his human form. Girl can't wait 5 years. She needs it now.
माँ बाप की नज़र में कचरे का ढेर पड़ते देर लगती है, बेटी का शरीर पड़ते नहीं। 16वां बरस उतरते ही
Another 16-year-old.
करके पराए ठौर भेजने की चिंता करने लगे।
A lot more connections than I was
माँ की कोख में समा
expecting.
गई, पर बाबुल के आंगन में नहीं समाई। व्यापार में डूबा पति जबरन रवाना हुआ तो वह मेरे वश की बात नहीं थी। न भूत की इस आकस्मिक प्रीत के सामने वश चला। जाते हुए को रोक न सकी, सामने प्रकट हुए भूत को मैं किस प्रकार मना करूं।
She's so wonderful. And like a repeated idea of the wife trying to remain hidden. There are times, of course, with the veil, and there are times in terms of the framing where her head is cut off, her face is cut off.
कि बहू के तो संतान होने वाली है, शायद बच्चा हो भी गया होगा।
Oh boy, what's going to come of that? And what kind of child will be produced from this unholy union?
भला मैं दूसरा
Yeah, a lot
कैसे
of
हुआ?
diagonals, a lot of opaque cameras. Gonna pause? Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Okay. Starting again from 4507, starting in 3, 2, 1, start. I suppose a metaphor for the reproduction for the childbirth. And also it's of course the it's also the fruit that she wanted to gather when they first became betrothed, so it's a remnants of the earlier stages of their marriage, and also the first note of discord. Oh, it's you? It's a nice sight gag. Just keep it going like this.
तुम्ही ने तो मुझे जबरन व्यापार करने के लिए भेजा था। माँ, तू भी अपनी कोख से पैदा किए बेटे को पहचान नहीं सकेगी।
I keep getting freaked out by this red sari. I don't know if it's bloody or if that's just the color of it. I know it's just the color of it, but it always comes as a surprise when it's shown in the shot.
4 बरस तो स्वप्न थे, ओझल हो गए। भला सपने का क्या सहारा? कोई पुरुष इस बात की जानकारी चाहता तो मैं उसे हाँ या ना में कुछ जवाब ही देती, पर एक औरत का हृदय पाकर इसने यह बात मुझसे पूछी, इसका मैं क्या उत्तर दूं?
Is this the first image of the movie? Yeah, and there she is. She was presented in a still frame at the beginning.
इन दोनों को एक बार राजा जी के हवाले कर दो, फिर राजा जी जाने और सेठ जी जाने.
We'll cut them in half and join them to each other. But which half gets to be the top half?
बरगद के पेड़ से बाहर निकला भूत हवेली के भीतर जा बसा था। अब गडरिये के न्याय द्वारा इस प्रकार पहले वह छागल के भीतर घुसा दिया गया और फिर छागल के साथ कुएं के अंदर।
भैया, न्याय तो राम जाने क्या हो, पर तू अच्छी तरह जानता है कि मैं सेठ जी का असली बेटा हूँ, सच्चा पति हूँ। किंतु तू कौन है, यह तो बता। मैं औरतों की चमड़ी के भीतर का सूक्ष्म तत्व हूँ, उनके प्रेम का अधिकारी हूँ। व्यापार और कमाई से कहीं ज्यादा मुझे मोह और प्रीत की लालसा है।
Not the worst virtue to
दूसरी
have.
बकवास से मतलब नहीं, साफ साफ बता कि पावन बेदी तूने उसका हाथ पकड़ा था क्या?
No, I did not. I enjoyed all the fruits of your labor.
कोरे मोरे हाथ पकड़ने से क्या होता है?
That's an interesting question.
पावन बेदी की दुहाई सारी उम्र नहीं चलती।
Yeah, laws of men, rules of society, reduced down to very kind of simple matters of claim, I suppose. Claim that ignore facets or virtues or context. In some ways, I do want to kind of talk this out a little bit once we're done.
जैसे सच बोलने वाले को इन मूर्ख लोगों ने कितना हैरान किया.
But
पर एक आध परीक्षा और लूंगा.
I do want to talk about some experiences, some filmic experiences. This is comparable to, I think, one that's been featured on this channel that people will most likely have experienced would probably be a Walkabout. There's kind of like a dreamlike, ethereal quality to the movie, a kind of resplendence of imagery and pared downness of plot. That this movie is evoking, that it kind of allows you to like rest back and just soak it in and not necessarily concern yourself too much with plot or logistics. Is this the box test? Is this Dune?
7 चुटकियों के साथ ही जो आदमी इस छागल के भीतर घुस जाएगा वही सच्चा स्वामी है. न्याय सल्तनत में ये देख ली. छागल तो मेरी बेकार जाएगी पर न्याय जला तो सोच विचार कर ही जला. चलो साथ चलते हैं. लोगों को
And we're not allowed to kind of see what the actual tests are to a certain degree. We're only meant to kind of suppose them or infer them. But I guess something similar that I would think of. I mean, obviously, I mentioned the test in Dune and whatnot, but I think of the jar of pickles, for example, in I forgot what that Jewish folktale is, or that Jewish storybook is. But similarly, the demon gets his hand caught in the jar, just as the ghost gets trapped inside of the water satchel. And the baby's been born. I wonder if the ghost needed to be cast out for the baby to finally be born and for the labor to be successful. These kind of interesting strands of like the mythical or the mystical world interacting with the biological or the corporeal world. Like there's an invisible set of rules or a set of like laws or physics that are defined between the two elements that certain criteria need to be met. I'm not saying that's definitely what happened, but those are the kind of that's the kind of dream logic that's evoked.
हवेली के अंदर घुसते ही सेठ जी का बेटा सीधा मेढ़ी की ओर लपका। एक एक बोल के साथ
Some wonderful use of a crossfade there.
कलेजे में अंगार सा दहक उठता था।
You've betrayed me.
उसके मुंह से कोई आह नहीं निकली।
जन्म देने वाले माँ बाप भी जब नहीं पहचान पाए तो भला तुम क्यों कर सही सही पहचान कर सकती?
But she did the entire time.
छागल के भीतर घुसते ही खूब रोया चिल्लाया। आखिर कुएं में फेंकने के बाद ही पीछा छूटा और उसका चिल्लाना बंद हुआ। दुष्ट हरामी कहीं का, आखिर छल का मजा चखा ही दिया।
I mean, he's been more familiar with her, been more intimate with her this entire time, and the husband has been the alien, has been the stranger, the one that abandoned her on the first day of their nuptials. This is an extremely alienating experience for her. I mean, the deepest roots of many a folklore, many a folktale. Ladies just do be one of the fucking supernatural entities. Many a lady do be want to be fucking a fish rather than their husband. I do, for my part, like, love how silent a character this wife has been. I know that's, like, kind of a limiting factor for a lot of female characters in aggregate in the macro, but specific to this story, I love how the let's say the love story, the story of intimacy, of familiarity between she and the ghosts has been expressed entirely non-verbally. Almost no interactions of dialogue. Her interactions with the husband has been kind of obsessively dialogue driven, logically driven, and the relationship she had of closeness, of swelling emotion, so much that it swelled her belly, was one that was nonverbal, that was inexpressible.
कभी किसी बात के लिए जाने अनजाने विरोध प्रकट नहीं किया। सास ने जच्चा की खातिर जितनी तरह के लड्डू बनाए उसने चुपचाप गले उतारे। जब सास ने कहा प्रसव के बाद सिर धोया, सूरज पूजा, ब्राह्मण आकर हवन कर गया, औरतों ने सुमधुर गीत गाए, गुड़ की मांगलिक लापसी हुई। सास के कहते ही जलवा पूजी, पीली चुंदरिया ओढ़ी, बिटिया को झूले झुलाया, परिंदे की विधवत पूजा की, कुमकुम की अल्पनाएं चित्रित की, मेहंदी लगाई, जैसा कहा वैसा किया। कहने पहने ऐसी सुलक्षणा दुल्हन तो सौभाग्य से मिलती है।
I'm really falling in love with these repeated images.
जल पूजन की शुभ रात्रि के झीने अंधियारे में जच्चा झांझर की कुड़न ध्वनि चितराती हुई बेड़ी की सीढ़ियां चढ़ने लगी।
And these still frames.
गोदी में बच्ची थी, स्तनों में दूध, आंखें सूनी, हृदय सूना, माथे में जैसे अगणित भौरे गुंजार कर रहे हों। पति मधुर प्रतीक्षा में शैया पर बैठा था।
And the sound of the bangles begin to sound like chains. And just the glow of that child's eyes. Is that going to be the last image? The last remembrance? It's truly a tale as old as time. The story of duty triumphing over love. Oh. I'm really, really, really of two minds about this. I really, really, really struggled with this movie. It's very apparent that I didn't love this throughout, and I came to the end and extremely, extremely fell in love with it. And so I just want to talk out that process a little. So for perhaps the first half of this, I think where I was sitting emotionally or responsively was more kind of like an appreciation of what was happening in this film, rather than a sincere like love of anything that I was doing. And that's where I sat for most of this film. I didn't really love it too much, but I was given a framework, or I was setting up a framework to kind of appreciate what was being done. And I think that framework is that this movie is kind of functioning on an imagistic, ethereal level, that it's not too insistent on its storytelling, and in that it evokes the same kind of theater, the same kind of filmic experience as something like Walkabout, as something like Stalker or Shatten Tango. Il Limite, I think, is probably one of my most frustrating but really profound cinematic experiences from the past year. It's this Brazilian film from 1931, and it's like genuinely one of the most frustrating filmic experiences you can have in practice, like in the process of watching it. But in terms of the after effects of it, in terms of the things that stick with you afterwards, in terms of the very, very underutilized or underexplored kind of emotional responses one has to art, to cinema, it was one of the best experiences I've had in a movie in the past year. And I kind of arrived at that with this. The story actually kind of revealed itself more and more in a more majestic way, in a more earnest way as it continued on. Without the movie being too explicit about it, I did live in the kind of curiosity of the wife, and eventually the kind of mournfulness and remembrance and regret that she lives in at the end of the story. I think this was a kind of storytelling that, like, it's not hitting you over the head with exposition. It's not trying to develop themes or ideas in a very rational sort of way in terms of construction. This is more of a piece of deconstruction, and throughout the entire movie I felt like I was watching it through like a layer of paraffin, that it was always kind of holding me at a distance, like I was seeing things out of focus. And living in that space for long enough, living in that kind of dream-like structure long enough, I think you kind of get it. Like when you watch 2001, or when you watch Stalker, or when you watch specifically, I think from this time, what's the Jodorowsky film, El Topo, when you live in the kind of dream logic long enough and you see things out of focus, you begin to see another image kind of emerge, and you're not looking for the literal story anymore. You're looking for the kind of extrapolation of it, the way the story makes you feel. And at the end, I really kind of felt her emotions all the more strongly, based on how simply the story was being told, and based on the story being told only in expressions, that her story was never going to be expressed in words. It would only be expressed in the things that she saw, the moments where aspects of her body, aspects of her form were concentrated on, and when she chose to meet the camera and when she chose to look away. Like a lot of this movie was informed by her bowing her head and her gaze being averted, and it starts and it ends with her staring directly at us, and we're given very different kind of interpretations of what that look means from the beginning to the end of the story. And I felt like it was a wonderful love story, not really communicated. This is the trick. This is how you get me to like a movie, is that in the end it's a love story. In the end it's about family. But I really did feel that. It's like a really powerful story of the ways in which newlyweds feel alienated from their partners and seek real, true human connection, because that's kind of the paradox of marriage, that marriage lives simultaneously in these two areas where it's an institution, but it's also a concept, and the two are in stark contrast with each other. And they're almost diametrically opposed to each other. There's the institution of marriage, where it's a contract formed between two people, an understanding that they have based on the rules of their society and based on the rules of their government, and in almost all instances, based on that contract, they are subordinating themselves to the rules of their society, to the rules of patriarchy, of hierarchy, of economy, of class, of all these different rules that form the society are reinforced by institutions like marriage. And on the other side, marriage is conceptual, and it's the highest form and expression of love, and it's something irrational and non-social and incredibly selfish and individualistic and passionate and interior, and it's not a social form. It's something that you dream about, something that you yearn for, something that is ideal. And this told that kind of story of the kind of dreams that young women have, that young wives have, that young newlyweds have, being trapped in the institution of marriage and dreaming of the better ideals of marriage. And I really felt that dearly. And I think it was helped by the story not telling it in a logical and a rational form, in a form of dialogue, in a form of plot construction, in a form of layering the brick house of a screenplay as much as possible, so much as deconstructing the story, taking away as much as possible, trusting that the audience is intelligent enough, emotionally capable enough, if given enough contextual clues, to really identify what the story is about. I'm sure there are other readings to it. I have seen the ones that are like how the ghost represents modernity versus the husband representing old class traditions or class imperatives and whatnot. I'm sure that they're there. I just wouldn't know them, being a layman, being ignorant of Indian culture. Yeah, overall, I came around a lot to this by the end, and that's kind of the surprise and the trick of cinema. But truly, like, this is a movie that was constantly in flux, constantly transforming itself until the end, or revealing itself into the end. And while I kind of appreciated the imagery and the artistry in the beginning of this movie, I didn't really understand its function. I wasn't open to it until I was exposed to it long enough, where by the end I was in a groundswell of like real emotional response to this movie. Yeah. I'm very surprised. I'm very, very, very surprised. I really ended up enjoying this a lot. That was Duvidha. I think you should check it out. Really, honestly. If you have a temperament for that sort of stuff. In the meantime, don't forget to click the like button and subscribe for more old, obscure, and art house films. And until next time, keep watching good movies. And keep watching movies from around the world. It's just so exciting. I don't know what to say about it. It's just whole different worlds out there. A lot to take in. A lot.